Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Chalkboard History Volume XXX.
Several.
Triple X. It's a wrestler, right?
Yeah. Was.
XXX 1, 2, 3. Stop with the dirty thoughts about XXX.
No. There was the guy.
XXX 1, 4. Roman numeral. What is that? XLV. Volume 45.
He's going very fast here for me.
Well,
it's volume 45, parts 1 and part 2.
Part 1, correspondence. No, part 1 is reports.
Part 2 is correspondence.
God,
we're nerds.
Super Bowl 53 is what? L 1, 2, 3?
I think so.
Is L 50? All right, what are we talking about today? The Texas Monument?
We're talking
Confederates and monuments.
With a question mark.
Question mark. So we are, 3 or 4 days removed from putting up a really great monument to Texas troops who fought at the Battle of Franklin. Had the unveiling, had the dedication, had a little get-together afterwards, honored the donor, John Now, and the Texas Historical Commission. I think it's a wonderful addition to the battlefield. But we thought, since Granberry and his guys, along with some Texas cavalrymen and Texas artillerymen, are now, I guess, memorialized on the battlefield, it would be interesting to talk about one of the, at least for me, I think, one of the coolest, hardest hitting,
easiest,
ass kicking Confederate units ever, and they're at Franklin.
Yeah.
And what a great name. Francis Marion Cockrell's Missouri Brigade. So
it rolls off the tongue. Cockrell's
does.
Missouri Brigade. Yeah. You know, you're thinking about badass soldiers in the Civil War. It's like them here, and then like the Iron Brigade is like down a little bit.
Cockrell, Iron Brigade,
Yeah.
Irish Brigade. Don't charge uphill, me boys. See, we could work it right in. Actually, the Irish Brigade's on the other side, so he had it wrong on so many levels.
Yeah.
So Cockrell's from, he is from really rural, kind of nowheresville, Missouri. Warrensburg, I think. He's an attorney.
Which shows you, I think, the incredible kind of skill that he developed over the course of the war to go from being like a citizen lawyer to being probably the commander of one of the most efficient and probably best brigades in Clayborne's division.
Wait a second. Somebody's head's going to explode.
But wait. You heard what I just said, right?
I did.
Better than Clayborne's division.
That's what I was going to say. So you look, Cockrell,
Yep.
Claiborne,
Yep.
George Wagner, all at Franklin.
Yep.
All three of them truly civilian citizen soldiers.
Politicians or lawyers.
Claiborne did a little stint in the British Army, but so what?
He didn't learn how to lead a division
But
in the
they
Army.
all had something that you just couldn't teach. So Cockrell joins, Missouri's very split, joins the Confederate cause or the Southern cause. And he and some of the units that ended up at Franklin, I mean, these guys were everywhere. 1st Missouri Infantry, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. He ends up with dismounted cavalry, which is, they're just former cavalrymen converted to infantry. But they're everywhere. And they were at, for me, one of the coolest parks in the national system, Wilson's Creek.
Yep.
So they are there in the beginning.
So is John Schofield.
They are, yes, he was. They were at Pea Ridge.
Yep.
They were at Corinth.
That's a pretty interesting dynamic all by itself. Just shows you how divided Missouri was. Is you get a guy like John Schofield who's out in St. Louis in 1860, and he goes in for the Union cause, and you get men like Francis Cockrell. Same thing out in Missouri. But it's just it shows you the division of the state.
Yeah, but Schofield's from New York.
Yeah, but he was there, and he commanded the Missouri state troops that were raised in the beginning. And
I suspect Cockrell didn't like Nathaniel Lyon and Franz Siegel much, but they were at Pea Ridge. They were being bled out at Corinth as they attacked, along with countless other Southern soldiers, that those couple fateful days in October of '62. He's almost killed at Vicksburg. He's I don't know what the explosion was, but one of the various detonations by U.S. troops to blow holes in the Confederate defenses. Cockrell got blown up into the air.
Yeah.
He got wounded during the Atlanta campaign. Actually, kind of gnarled one of his hands a bit. But it was at Franklin so I worked backward with these guys, and I became, familiar with who they were because of what happened to them at Franklin. It's how ridiculous is it? Like, I can rattle off the numbers. He had 696 men, and they took 60% casualties, the highest of any Confederate brigade, and they're right on Granbury's right. So Granbury and Cockrell are driving in.
Yeah.
Cockrell kind of coming in diagonally toward the Cotton Gin. Granbury's guys between the Gin and the road.
I was talking about this on a battlefield tour the other day. Is you get this thing where the entire Confederate Army is so wide and the area that they have to hit is so narrow, and so everybody starts to bunch towards the center. And as you're bunching, who pops out in front? But Francis Cockrell and his men, and so they're absorbing a lot of casualties before anybody else is even hitting towards the earthworks. They're probably some of the first troops to slam in to that area right there near the Gin, right near where Adams Street runs today.
It's splitting hairs, but I've long thought, and I presented evidence in my first book, that I think they really were some of the first infantry to hit the line, which is why they take the casualties, because a lot of Cleburne's guys got wrangled up with some of Wagner's guys out front. And further east, like Loring and Walthall, are getting really bunched up and really constricted as they're starting to pile in on top of each other because of the river. And then French's division, which is the smallest, but he's got Cockrell and Claudius Sears, and Sears got a little tangled up with some of Wagner's guys. So Cockrell just swings around him, because Cockrell was originally in the reserve position. And then as he moved around, he actually ended up in the worst spot on the field. I mean, Jesus, they hit that spot, kind of around the Gin, where,
right in front of Casement's
where they're taking the infantry fire, but then they're getting the blast from the 6th Ohio, and they're taking some fire from like the 65th Indiana, and a couple of those companies had Henrys.
Yeah.
It's just, it's no wonder they lost, I think, 417 men. Cockrell's wounded like 4 times. Horatio Gates got shot in both arms. He couldn't even hold the bridle on his horse.
Horatio Gates.
Is that his name?
Elijah Gates.
Oh, Elijah Gates. Sorry. What is
Horatio Nelson.
Horatio Nelson, yeah.
That's the Joseph Boyce
Elisha
account.
Gates, yes. That's the Joseph Boyce account about England expects every man to do their duty, which is such a great... That's right before the battle.
Yeah.
And was it Denny Callahan said, damn little duty England would get out of this Irish crowd.
Yeah.
And that's been, recited. I mean, not everybody talk about charge uphill, me boys, but, those guys... Those Confederate soldiers from that part of Missouri, a lot of them were Irish. Very, very few Germans. They didn't tend to get along very well on a political line. But a lot of those guys had come from Virginia. The guys who gravitated toward the Confederate side, like Cockrell, they'd come out of Virginia and North Carolina. You can actually trace Missourians' loyalties sometimes to their ethnicity, but also their place of origin. Because do you know the other place a lot of Missourians, where'd they come from? Ohio.
Interesting.
Floods of Ohioans, some guys from Indiana. So generally, if you could trace your father, especially like your father's generation, to those states, that's where you'd see those guys line up. And Missouri's a weird place. Like if you get north of the Missouri River, they called that Little Dixie.
Yeah.
Whereas where Cockrell was from tended to have a lot more northern sympathies. But that enclave around Warrensburg was pretty solidly southern. But they were so battered at Franklin, they didn't fight at Nashville.
Yeah. They were held back the whole time. And then eventually they get busted up even more.
He had like 250 guys.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Cockrell and a lot of here's a little hat tip. Another location. A lot of places in Franklin claim they were hospitals. Some actually were. Clouston Hall, which is down on 2nd Avenue, was where a number of the Missourians convalesced, and I am certain that's where Cockrell was.
Because he's shot through both legs.
Yeah.
He's got gunshot wounds to his ankles and to his knees.
And he was there for several days.
Yeah.
And I think they evacuated him before the collapse at Nashville 2 weeks later. But so where do the Missourians end up? Where do Cockrell's guys?
Well, I did want to talk about one of the maybe most interesting soldiers is Hugh Garland, because he's got this incredible kind of connection everywhere.
First
right?
Missouri.
Yeah. So think about just his family, his parents. His father was one of the first prosecutors in the state case for Dred Scott.
I did not know that.
And then the other one is...
Look at the professor schooling us all.
I think it's his maternal grandfather.
So wait a minute. Garland's father was a prosecutor in the Dred Scott case?
He was involved in the Dred Scott case.
In the state case?
In the state case before it goes to the Supreme
Which
Court.
Scott lost.
Right.
Oh, wow.
And then I think it's his maternal father, or his maternal grandfather.
So he represented Sanford.
I think so, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Very
the maternal grandfather owned a woman named Elizabeth Keckley as a slave.
Who later served in the White House.
Yeah.
With Lincoln.
Yeah. That's a really cool little connection there. When you think about, like, this one guy who fights at Franklin, he's killed at Franklin. And there's this kind of connection to all these other little things that have happened in the world around him.
Well, and one of the guys who captured or went out and got a flag from Updike's brigade, actually...
Merrifield?
James K. Merrifield said that there was I don't know that he ever ID'd him as Garland, but it was clearly Garland's body.
Yeah, he talks about that in one of his accounts in the Confederate Veteran. He says, I'm almost certain it was this Colonel Garland that I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Garland was still alive.
Dying, but
still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that the scene in front of just south of the Gin, there's, I mean, with all due respect and no humor about this, Claiborne's division took horrendous casualties.
Yeah.
We talk there's a little bit of this, the casualties on the new Texas Monument. But my God.
You'd be hard pressed to find anything that could even hold a candle to what the Missourians endured in front of the works.
That's why I said it's the highest brigade loss at Franklin. And a lot of people, even a decade ago, barely... Cockrell's name, I can assure you, was not mentioned on tour at the Carter House 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And I was adamant that we were going to talk about that unit and what they suffered. In fact, when I wrote the text for the marker that is just south of the Gin, Garland's photo is actually on it. That was a really cool day.
Yeah.
To be able to have their place in the action that day remembered. So they end up where? Mobile.
Down in Mobile, Fort Blakely. And they're there on April the 9th, 1865.
Hat tipped Pat Landrum.
Yeah.
Who loves to talk about.
Do you think he really ever watches these? I feel like he doesn't.
He doesn't. He says he cares, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
He just talks a big game.
Yeah.
That's Landrum. Talk.
Most genuine person you've ever met.
Most genuine talk. When did I say that?
He told me about it. It was someday in the Carter Garden.
Oh, it sounds like an old Landrum story.
Yep.
But he doesn't have any evidence to back that up.
But they do end up down Fort Blakely.
They do.
April 9th, 1865.
There's a lot of artillery fire there.
Pretty big
bang,
day.
Bang, bang,
Think about what's going on out that way.
You know who's also there? The 44th Missouri.
Yeah.
And some of those guys, William Drumhiller, who was a company commander in the 44th Missouri, had a brother-in-law in the Missouri Brigade. He was captured at Franklin. Drumhiller was clicking off prisoners on December 1st, and who walked up but his brother-in-law?
Well, that's the cool thing about, and we were talking about the Texas Monument, and somebody said, well, wouldn't it be cool if other states would come in? I think the coolest addition to the battlefield monument would be Missouri, because you could do it from both sides.
I don't know that there would be anybody cooler. Mississippi would be great, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, but to have a Missouri monument, and actually a Missouri monument that was for both sides.
Yeah.
But,
One side's got the federal 44th Missouri and the 24th Missouri, and the other one's got Cockrell, Missouri Brigade.
But even if
the 15th Missouri,
even in the 15th Missouri, but even if it was just,
I hate that I can rattle those off. That's a sickness.
No, that's pretty awesome actually.
Okay.
So
well, that's cool.
it's it'd be great to have it. It is wonderful to see Cockrell's men finally get the credit at the place the survivors clearly never forgot, because a lot of those guys had been in it for 3.5 years, and
they go back and they argue with one another about what they saw, what they actually did.
Well, of course they did. Everybody did.
But it shows you how important it was to them that they get the facts right as best as they could.
But you know what they didn't argue about? It's how terrible it was.
Yeah.
That day. And Cockrell himself is an interesting guy, so we probably finish with this. He spent years in the United States Senate. He represented Missouri for many years, and I will say, I'm sure Cockrell was like a lot of men of his time frame. I'm sure he wasn't a big supporter of civil rights for especially black men. But Cockrell does not seem to ever find himself wrapped up in a lot of that nonsense. Cockrell was an infrastructure guy.
Yeah.
He was big about building railroads. He was big about advancing the reunited country. And Francis Marion Cockrell did not go back and litigate the war like the Jubal Earlys of the world. And I think that had there been a few more Cockrells, not just in the Senate or the House, but in governor seats, the country would have healed quicker. And Cockrell was a big proponent for Franklin being a national park.
Yeah.
So that didn't happen, but I would like to think that he and others would appreciate some of the recent efforts. So, any last thoughts on an awesomely cool Confederate unit at Franklin?
No, you come out and hear the story. There's really a couple of things you could read.
Horatio Gates. Elijah Gates. I can't believe that.
Could read Joseph Boyce's account, because he's got his book, The History of the 1st Missouri. That's pretty good, for 3rd and 5th Missouri.
Oh, wait a second.
And then that Gottschalk book.
I just thought of a connection to the Chairs family.
Okay.
John Hickey.
Yeah.
John Hickey
is in what?
Is in the Missouri Brigade.
Which regiment?
I don't know what regiment. It's Captain John Hickey. J.M. Hickey wrote a bunch of accounts. He actually had his leg amputated right behind the Carter's gin.
Huh.
But guess where he's at post-war?
Is he here?
He is in Columbia, Tennessee, folks.
Look at that.
And he is working as lawyers with Austin Hickey, who married
Jenny Chairs.
Jenny Chairs.
Look at
Matt
that.
Chairs' daughter married a man who, I think they were cousins.
Yeah.
And they worked together in Columbia, Tennessee.
That's
so
really
there was
cool.
a little Missouri connection right here at Rippavilla.
There we go.
All right. Thanks, everybody.